Hello everybody, Long Ago Ego here. My name is Jeffrey, and today Hiroshima Gamers is going to go through the rules of Sekigahara, the unification of Japan. Now, this is the board we're playing on. The fight is between the Yellow Forces, Ishida, and all the clans that support him, and then the Black Forces, Tokugawa, and all the clans that support him. Now, the winning condition is the Tokugawa group can win if they kill the heir to the Ishida side, or if they kill Ishida, this particular block here. Now, Ishida side wins if they kill the Tokugawa block, this one here. Now, the battle takes place over 7 weeks, and that's represented up here on this turn track. Now, for each turn, there's an A part and a B part. So there are actually 14 turns over the course of the gameplay. Now, these numbers represent the number of blocks that are coming into the game on those turns. Now, initially, we start off with 4 blocks in the recruitment area. Everything is done by cards, including recruitment. And this is the Tokugawa box. Now, the initiative, or the first player for each round, is determined by card sort of auction. Now, there are basically 4 types of cards. There are cards for each clan supporting each side. Now, this is the Maida clan, and it has 1 symbol up here, which is a typical kind of thing. Now, if this card was played for initiative, who decides the start player, then he would be bidding too. Now, this is another rare kind of card that has 2 symbols on it. I'll explain that later. But for now, this one has a 6. If this would be played, then the player would be saying he wants to bid 6 in order to decide who goes first for that round. Another kind of card that's used is this one, which has the sword on it. And I'll explain that later as well. And then the 4th kind of card is this loyalty challenge card, and I'll explain that later as well. Now, the board has a number of features. Now, I have supplemented some of the features with some more concrete, bigger, easily noticed things. Now, the troops on the board are an initial seed, which are specific troops that have to be in a specific place, as well as random draws. Now, this location, it gets 2 random draws. It doesn't have any specific troops. Over here in Osaka, there are 6 specific troops, and there are 2 random draws. This was 1 random draw. This one is 3 random draws. Now, there are also castles on the board. Now, I have these standees where the castles are. Now, the castles are important during the reinforcement phase, Whoever has the most castles during each turn's reinforcement phase gets to draw an extra card. Now, the little red dots here indicate resources, and whoever has the most resources gets to draw an extra block. Now, typically, you're drawing 4 blocks to go into an area, into the resource box. So if you have the most resources, you get an extra one. Now, at the moment, Ishida is controlling 4 castles, so I've represented that by these tokens here. Tokugawa has 2 castles, this one, and that's represented by these 2 tokens here. Now, when someone controls a resource, which they do here, that token should go over here, and Tokugawa has the resource for Edo, so he would get that one there. The other tokens are still on the board. If you are in the location of the token, then you get to take it. Now, you get to keep that resource as yours, even if you move out, until the other side moves into the location, and then they would take the token from you. Now, castles. You control a castle if your forces are at the location of the castle. If there are no forces at the location of a castle, it reverts to the owner initially. So yes, yellow castles belong to Ishida if nobody's there, and the black castles belong to Tokugawa if nobody's there. Now, there are 2 kinds of roads in the game. There are small roads, and there are big roads. Big roads, there are not many. There's only this sort of loop over to Osaka and back to Edo. And of course, this is the famous Tokaido route that goes along the coast. Now, at the end of the game, if none of these special characters have been killed, then victory is awarded to whoever has the most points, with castles counting as 2 points and resources counting as 1 point. So castles and resources are important throughout the game because they give you extra cards, 1 extra card, or they give you 1 extra block when it's turn to draw for those. And they're also important at the end of the game because they decide the winner if there isn't an instant win. Now, each turn starts with a reinforcement step. At that time, you must round down your hand by half. So 6 cards would go to 3, 7 cards would go to 3, or would go to 4. You would discard 3 cards, so your hand would drop to 4. Then you would draw 5 more cards. If you have the most castles, you draw 1. You also draw blocks. I believe it's 4 blocks, and whoever has the most resources draws 1 more. At that time, there's a bid for turn order, and the winner of the bid decides who goes first. And of course, there's 2 rounds per 2 turns per round, or per week. And that's repeated for 7 weeks. Now, movement is also card driven. Now, you have the choice. If you play no cards, you may discard cards from your hand and redraw the same number. So you can refresh if you don't have good cards to do what you want to do. You can get rid of them and hope for some better cards. Or, if you don't play a card during the movement phase, then you may move one block. A block is everybody within a location. Or you may muster one block. Now, to muster, you're taking a block from here and you're moving it to the location with the same clan symbol as the block. So these would go over there. Here, these would have to go to the Maeda location, etc. So if you play no cards during the movement phase, you can discard as many as you want and redraw the same number. Or you may move one block, one location. Or you may muster one block. Now, if you play one card from your hand, if you discard, you may move 3 blocks. So, units from 3 different locations. Or you may move 2 blocks and do 1 muster. So muster is the way you get more blocks onto the board. Now, if you discard 2 cards, you may move all of your blocks and you may muster. Now, you may muster a maximum of once per turn, and the units that you muster may not move that turn. Now, if there's combat going on in a location that you would be mustering to, you may muster into that combat situation. Now, the basic movement is moving from one location to the next location. Okay, one location to the next location. One location to the next location. So, that seems a little bit slow. So there are ways to maximize movement. Now, you get 1 additional movement if leadership is part of your, not part of your group. If leadership is available to you at the beginning of your move. Now, leadership can be an actual leader block who has the banner. It's a leader block that has the banner. Can't see it very well. Or if you are moving from the capital. Edo is the capital, and over there, Osaka. Oh, no, Kyoto is the capital. Osaka is where the guy is. And the other thing is if you're moving from a castle. Castle can provide leadership. So actual leaders, castles, or the capital of the country can provide leadership. You can do, if you have that at the beginning of your move, you get 1 extra location movement. The other thing is, if you're traveling on the big road, the highway, you can get 1 extra movement. And the other one is if you discard a card, you get an extra movement. So you can move up to your basic movement, a highway movement, leadership movement, and a discard movement. So you can move up to 4 spaces maximum on a move turn. However, there are some minus factors. For every group that is more than a unit of 4, you lose 1 movement point. So 4 can move their normal. If you're moving 5 blocks in that group, it's over 4, so you're going to lose minus 1 point, 1 movement point. Now, if you're moving 8, you're still penalized by 1 movement. If you're moving 9, you're going to be penalized 2 movements. Okay, so 4 is ideal. You get all your maximum movements. Now, speaking of 4, in the case of an overrun, which is a 4 times bigger force moving into an area. For example, if you're moving your nice 4 blocks into an area where there's only 1 enemy, you would overrun it. The enemy is destroyed immediately. And your blocks, if they're still have movement points left, they may keep going. Now, if you had already moved a number of units into that location, and then from another direction, you moved additional units into that location, so you have units from 2 places moving in, and then your maximum is 4 times the enemy's strength, then you would also overrun that position. The first person into that location, he stopped. His movement was finished before you can move someone else. But the second one, if he still has movement left, he may continue to move. Now, sometimes you're going to have a battle. If you don't have more than the other person, 4 times more than the other person, you have to stop and you have to battle. After all of your movement is done, for all of your units that you're able to move, some of them moved into a battle situation, you determine which battles you want to fight first, and then not every block that is in the location is going to fight in the battle. You are going to decide by playing cards who's in the battle. Now, if you played this kind of a card, then Maida would be able to be in the fight. 1 block of Maida could be in the fight. If you played a card that had 2 symbols, and these are very rare, then 2 units from Fukushima would be able to be in the fight. Now they go in 1 at a time, which is important, because if you play multiples of the same clan, you get an extra impact point for doing so. Okay? Now, if you play the card with the sword, then you may play or have one of your units step up, which has the gun on it, or the cavalry symbol. Okay? Loyalty card I'll talk about later. Now, over here, we have the impact track. Now, the attacker, which would be you if you moved into an area, goes first. If he played a Maida card and he played this block into the fight, then he would move up 3 positions because he's got 3 strength in that group of soldiers. Now, each block represents about 5,000 soldiers, so these are elite. So they have an impact on the battle of 3. Now, if you played another card and you were able to play more Maida, then you would get 2 for this because it's got 2 symbols on it. And then because you already had played a Maida, you would get 1 more. Okay. Now, for each Maida you play, you would get the number of symbols on the block as well as 1 more. Okay. Now, this track is in units of 7. Now, 7 is very important. Okay. Let's say you played 1 more of something and you got 7. Okay. So you played this one and you got 7. You put this down. Now, each block you need to play a card. And each block adds to the impact on the impact track. Now, the only exception to that, if you're playing a leader into the fight, you can play as many leader blocks as you want without playing cards. But leaders are important in terms of movement. You get that extra movement. So leaders don't have any special fighting ability other than you don't have to play a card. So you've got cards back to play for something else. Okay. Now, you can play the gun or the cavalry block if you don't have a card with a sword on it, but you do not get the bonus. Now, if, okay, I'm not sure this next point. Anyways, you get, if you're playing the cavalry with a sword card, you get 2 points of impact for it. If you play it without the sword card, just the clan card, then you get your normal 1. And the same thing, if you've already played a gun or a cavalry and you play another one, you get double. So you get 2 if you're using your swords. If you're using a normal card, you don't get that extra bonus, the double points. Okay. Now, if you're playing the double card, the first block, you would get the number of symbols as your impact. The second block you play on the same card, because it's a double card, you get the number of symbols on it, plus you get 1 because you're playing the same clan block. Okay, so a special thing about the doubles. Now, the loyalty card. Your opponent may play a loyalty card at the end of, or at any time that you're playing a card to put a block into your fight. And the loyalty card asks you to prove that your troops are loyal to you. Now, you've played a card, for example, a Mida card, to get a Mida block into the fight. The loyalty card says prove that Mida is loyal to you by playing another Mida card. If you cannot do that, then the block that you just played goes over to the other side and fights for them. So it costs you a loyalty card, and it costs the other person an extra Mida card. So there's a chance that you can impact the fight. So those are very tricky. Okay, now after I have played all the cards I want to, and I've got my impact on the track, now the other side should be the lower impact, because impact decides who wins the fight. Since I am in the low position, I can decide how many cards and how many troops I want to put into the fight. So I would probably go beyond the number of troops you have in the fight in terms of impact. So I would be first on the impact track. Now, after I've stopped playing cards and putting troops into the fight, then it goes back to the first person. And they can decide, if they have cards, to put more people in the fight, and their impact would go up. Once it goes past their opponent, they can stop. Okay, so it can start off very, very small. You play one card or leader, get someone into the fight. You're on the impact track. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to fight. And then the other person, they get to go ahead of you. And then you can go ahead of them. And they can go ahead of you until you decide to stop. Now, whoever's in front, they're going to win the fight. Now, you don't always lose troops in the fight. You only lose troops depending on the seventh thing over here. Okay? So for each unit of 7 that you have, your enemy loses 1 block, completely killed that many troops, and they're off the board for good. Okay? So if you had played 14 impact, the enemy would lose 2 of the blocks in the fight. Actually, in the location. Okay? Now, if you'd only played 5 impact, okay, no blocks would actually be lost during that fight. So 7 is a very important number on that track. Now, the loser of the fight, if you didn't play up to 7, either one of you, the loser of the fight would lose 1 block. Okay, but you wouldn't. Now, winner and loser both lose blocks according to multiples of 7 in terms of the impact they played in that fight. Okay. Now, there's rules about where the loser may move, very detailed, so we won't get into that. When we play, I'm going to be playing this on Sunday against my friend David Hurley, and so as we're playing it, we'll review the specifics of that. Okay. Now, overruns can be involved in your retreat. I know that. Now, I'll say this now, although I've got another fight to talk about, the siege. So, after any fight, this is very important, all of the cards that you used in that fight, you get to draw that same number of cards back. So, you are getting more ammunition for another fight later on your turn. And for every 2 blocks that you lost during the battle, you get an extra card. Okay, very important point. Having cards, you got to use cards for everything. So remember, you're rounding down by half. So having those extra cards add up bit by bit. That grand battle at the end. Okay, now the other thing is a siege at a castle. Now, if you're at a location, for example, over here in Gifu, if you're at Gifu Castle, and you've got 1 or 2 blocks, here you've got 2 blocks, and your enemy moves in, okay, you can decide to go into the castle and not fight outside the castle. Okay, and you can have a maximum of 2 units in that castle. Now you've got to declare when the enemy moves in, when it's and they say, I'm going to fight at this location, you've got to decide, in castle or outside castle. Now, if you decide to stay outside the castle, it's a regular battle. Boom. You're just fighting each other. Now, if they're at a location, another location, for example, over here, we got another castle, that's Ueda Castle, and there are 3 troops here. Now, in that case, you cannot go into the castle because there's 3. Can't do it. You got to battle outside. Okay. So if there's 1 or 2, you decide battle outside or you're going to stay in the castle. Now, if you decide to be inside the castle, the attacker must play cards and attack you. Okay, he's got to fight. If you're in a siege and you're the active player, you don't fight in a siege. You don't do anything there. If your opponent has moved in, either early or now, because battles can last forever, because you're not always losing all the troops or they're not doing anything, right? So the aggressor, the person outside the castle on the siege, they play cards and put impact into the battle as usual. The defender plays no cards. He's inside the castle. Now, once again, for every 7 units of impact, the person under siege is going to lose 1 block. So if there's only 1 there, you got to get up to 7 impact. Now, you can wait to the next round. If there are 2 there, you can wait to the next round and fight the second guy. Okay. Anyways. Now, the defender gets a card for each block he loses in a siege. Okay. Now, one caveat there is you cannot play the guns or the cavalry into a siege situation. Okay. And of course, after every battle, you redraw new cards for every card you use during the battle. Now, we do have a special situation for the Shida player. Now, it has to do with the Mori clan. Historically, the Mori clan was sort of put in a bad position by the Ishida leadership. But if Tokugawa ever attacks Osaka, where the heir is, he's trying to kill the heir, and it's also where Ishida starts off. So fighting there might be the big battle that's good to do. If Tokugawa ever attacks Osaka, then all of these blocks immediately are put into that fight. Remember, there being in a fight just means you're available to be played using cards. Right? Doesn't mean you're actually fighting. It means you're part of the army that's near the battlefield. You're not actually been told to go in there and draw your swords. Okay. However, that's if you're being attacked. Everybody goes in. However, during your normal movement step, you may discard a card to bring one block from the Mori box into Osaka. Okay, so it's an extra situation for that player. And I think that's most of what we'll need to know. Okay, so I'll watch this and see if I'm going to post it. Thank you for watching.